Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. If you want to listen live in the central Indiana area, you can hear us on 93.5 FM and 107.5 FM.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
All right, welcome back. We're live at Pivot. We're downtown across from Bankers Life Fieldhouse, Hyatt House. Get here. Have a little pre-gamer with us. We'd love to have you again, second level. Pivot Bar is the location here on 93.5 and 107.5 FM, The Fan. Rick Venturi, his normal Monday after visit. And, man, there's a lot, Rick, to get into right now because that defense was a flat embarrassment yesterday.
Yeah, it was absolutely awful. There's no question about it. I've been warning about this. Everybody, I keep hearing in town, well, this defense is playing good enough to win if we just did this. Well, in the fourth quarters of if you look at the 3 out of the 4 last games against good teams, against the Texans, against Tennessee, and then against Tampa. I mean, we've gotten beat 31-0, 31-0 in the fourth quarter. So that's an issue to itself. But, defensively, if you look at those 3 games, I mean, when we played the Texans, we gave up 396 yards in 26 minutes, 297 passes. We gave up a ton of yardage, 234 to the 2 receivers, Fuller and Watkins. You knew you had to take away, and we didn't do that. Then you go to Tennessee. You got to take away the running game. They get 149 yards, 5.7 rushing, and the quarterback is 17 of 22. And then this week we give up 542. What's his name? Winston throws for 456. In the Texan game, the quarterback rating was 115.3, Tennessee 140, and then last week 107.3. So I really don't want to hear people tell me that, this team plays good enough to win. Now, this was a historic and horrific performance, against the Bucs. There's no question about it. And it really is even exaggerated by the fact that Evans, who's 50% of their offense, went out after the touchdown pass and essentially missed 3 quarters, and the quarterback even missed the series. So, I mean, this was historically bad. I don't think that you could played Winston any worse. And I mean, I go at the top. I go from tactics to technique to mental errors. But the first thing you cannot do, I said this on the pregame, the thing that Winston does best is throw deep and scramble. And those are the 2 things you got to take away. The one thing he is not, and we know he'll turn it over. I mean, he just basically handed Leonard 2 interceptions. But the thing about Winston, he doesn't have pinpoint accuracy. He's not an elite accuracy quarterback. And so what he needs more than anything else, John, is he needs open air for receivers to run to. And the worst possible thing you can play is area zone and soft underneath coverage like we played. Whether it was man or zone, we played underneath really, really soft and area. And so when he would move around in the pocket, when he would, which he has good escapability, when he moved around, I mean, guys were just wide open. Then we had miscues down in the red zone, very similar to the touchdown pass last week with Tennessee to Raymond. I have no idea on that one touchdown what Odom and Hooker were doing on the wide open play down inside to Watson. We have a man-to-man coverage in the red zone. We get all rubbed. Nobody covers the guy in the flat. I mean, but worse than ever is we've reverted back to that high school area zone. And blitzing wasn't a bad idea. I mean, the blitz is a good idea, but you have to play matchup coverage or man coverage behind it so that if he escapes or he moves in the pocket, guys aren't just running wide open, and that was discouraging. Really is all I'll get out. It just was absolutely amazing. 5 drives over 50 yards. I would have never thought that we would go down there and end up with 35 points and lose the game. It's just absolutely incredible. The defense was as bad as it could be. In our fourth quarter, we've just become a 7-innings football team. And, when we used to talk 2 years ago in 17, that theme would constantly come up. I mean, it was, you play 7 innings and we can't play that fourth quarter. Like I said, those 3 games out of 4 that we've played in the last month, we've been outscored 31-0 in the fourth quarter. We have now, I mentioned it last week, the regression in our fourth down operation. Now we've even regressed further. Now we've gone from what was the 9th defense going into and I don't mean fourth down, I'm talking about fourth quarter. We've gone from the 9th best team in the league. We've now fallen back to 16th on defense. And on offense, we've gone from 10th to 20th. And our quarterback, his rating in the fourth quarter compared to what the comeback kid Andrew was, I mean, it's in another galaxy. So, these are just the reasons that you're losing. And what you start, and I think the crapper here, John, is that when we started the season, we didn't know what we had, and we hoped to be very competitive. We thought we'd have a really good defense. We set a high bar for the defense. I thought, defensively they could carry us with a running game. If our quarterback was efficient, we would be fine, and we would win a lot of games 21-17. And I think when we hit that 5-2, and we have a win over Kansas City, we have a win over Houston, 2 division leaders at this moment. All of a sudden our goals elevated, our expectations elevated, only to be destroyed in the last 7 weeks. And I think what happens is when you and I said this in 17, but I say it whether you have a good team or a bad team. When you can't finish a game, when you're in that position, then you have to look at everything, because that's part construction of your team. That falls to your personnel unit. Are you just flat not good enough at times? It's in your game plan or game plan adjustment by the fourth quarter, and then it's flat execution. And when you're losing so many games this way, there's absolutely no way that you're going to play. And I'll tell you something that's just unacceptable to me, and I don't know when anybody's going to be held accountable, but we're sitting there at 22nd in pass defense, and we're sitting there at 30th, and this is where we've lived. We've lived in the bottom 3 for 2 years in NFL completion percentages with 70% against us. Tannehill throws for 77%. Winston off the charts, 70%. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. And, this is what you have to stop in the NFL. This is not Jones Junior High. This isn't college, Saturday Division III. You can stop the run, but you better, they pay those guys. Bud Carson told me when I was a rookie coach, he said, Rick, what do they pay that guy behind the center? In those days it was about $3 million. And he said, so understand this, son. This is what you have to stop. And area zone is not going to make it. When we blitzed, actually, it was worse because we opened up even more cavities in there. So, that was a very, very, very difficult day. But I think in some ways it's probably less gut-wrenching, because I think what's happened now is that we now are beginning to expect us to do something in the fourth quarter, give it away, miss the field goal, fumble the ball, whatever, and we did all those things. I mean, I thought that the fumble was critical, and Hines is playing his tail off. It isn't like he isn't. I mean, as a matter of fact, our return game looks like it has more juice with him in there now, John. He looks like he could give us something. He's running his ass off. He's a good matchup guy. But in a critical situation, and then everybody will blame the quarterback. I mean, in a critical situation in the red zone, when you have at least a field goal in the fourth quarter, he fumbles the ball. So, his ball security issues, which were once a big deal, which we've gotten by, they come back to bite you. I think the kid looked better as a kicker than Vinatieri did. He looked very good on his kicks until he didn't. As Mike Chappell said, he looked good until he didn't. But, you got to make a critical one at the end, and that's 6 points right there in the fourth quarter, at least, at minimum, that you don't get in a squeaker like that, in a 3-point win. And you just don't get that done. But I do, I just feel like that kid's got some juice. I thought the kicks were at least sharper from that standpoint. The other thing is we're just all of a sudden we're not running as well, John. We were gaining a big time identity running the football, and all of a sudden, our front's being controlled by other sides. We're really not getting the surge. I mean, we get a measly 66 rushing yards, and Tampa, who can't run it, against Jones Junior High, gets 79. They actually outgain us. So, and I think one of the things you hate as a defensive coach when you got 11 up and you're going to stop them, and try to get that ball back at the end when they pierce you for a 12-yard gain and they knocked Desir into the nickel seats. I mean, I thought they knocked him to Sarasota, to be honest with you, and they sealed Leonard and all those guys inside. It was just a gasher. So, I mean, I think not being able to run again, is hurting us. We can pin it all on the quarterback, and he certainly, has his issues. And as you have said for weeks, that's gonna be one of the major decisions. Oh, Ballard's got a lot of work to do. This isn't as good a shape as everybody thought it was. And when you look at him, there's always been issues. There's always been decisiveness at times. There's been I've always doubted that he had elite accuracy and touch, and that comes back to haunt you at times. When I say elite, I mean, one of the reasons we lose that game is it's 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2, and we get stopped in both situations, and they decide to come after us with zero blitz. One thing I know, and I knew that was coming because Arians and Bowles aren't going to sit there and lose it. You're going to have to beat them. So they go zero blitz on both of those. No free safety, get after you. And they got the good pattern on to Doyle, and he runs that little angle route, and the ball's, instead of being perfect right on the nose, it's a little bit behind him, and Jack is not the kind of athlete, a Gronkowski makes that catch, a Kittle makes that catch, and Jack doesn't make that catch. But it's also on the quarterback. Then the last one they go zero blitz again, and this time they just stop it. I mean, they basically, we try to run a little smash route. They zone it off with their two secondary guys. And by that time, Pierre-Paul's up and knocks the ball down. But, I mean, when you look at Brissett, you have those issues. You have things that you like. He made some good plays early to get out of trouble. He's getting out of trouble a lot, throwing with people hanging on him, running the ball in critical situations. So, there's so many pluses, but the accuracy, I think the accuracy touch thing is always a factor, and obviously whether it's on him or whether it isn't on him, the fourth quarter inability to get you over the top isn't there. Although I certainly don't think that's all on him. I think that was a combination of missed field goal, fumble the ball, not stop them. I mean, there's a million things in there really that get you beat, but. You see all those things, and it's just really amazing. I talked to you, in the pregame, and your first question was, what do we have to do today? And if you remember, I said to you, there's just two things psychologically. We have to play a full game, and we have to finish it, and we just have not done that. We haven't done that in 6 weeks, and it's very, like I said, it's very hard to watch because. Tampa isn't a great team by any stretch. There isn't any great teams that we've played, really. You saw Houston, basically just give it up yesterday. And I said that all along. Who trusts Houston? So I mean, it's just been a very, very difficult 6 weeks. And all those factors are, just really killing you. And I think the other thing that hurts a little bit is offensively, we generally come out with a really good game plan. I mean, I thought that I give Frank credit for really attacking them. Even though he doesn't have great speed, he really stretched. He really pushed the ball. They took their shots, and they got plays, and they got a couple PIs, and they got a couple catches on 50-50 balls. They took advantage of Tampa's weak corners, which everybody has at least one, and Tampa sure does. And we got big plays early. We have a really good mix last week in the first half, 50-50 run pass. But I will say this, I get the feeling that in the fourth quarter, if the game is even like that, is that we tighten down. We play then real tight. It's almost like every first down is a run, and, by then the defense is clamped on you. In the fourth quarter, that's when, teams will play kind of conservative. But by the fourth quarter, they're usually in your face, up in 8-man fronts, pressing. You see almost a difference because they're into the rhythm of the game. And I see us like running the ball in the fourth quarter. Every first down ended up 2nd and 10, and then and then it's all quick screens. It's like all of a sudden we're trying to play 4 downs, and we're going to go down and kick a field goal to win. And I really do sense that in that respect. And so, all those things go into winning and losing. And right now, that fourth quarter is just an absolute mess for us, John.
It is. Rick Venturi, segment you got to hear each and every Monday on the recap of the Tampa Bay game yesterday. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Rick, I'm going to put you on hold. We shall come back, and we'll dive more into that secondary in particular because we thought that this team had some answers there, and it looked pretty clueless yesterday, especially in the second half. We'll do that. We'll talk about the quarterback play and then look ahead to that Monday nighter against New Orleans coming up here on the other side. Quick break, and we're back with you live from the Pivot Bar. We're downtown inside the Hyatt House. Join us before the Clippers and the Pacers game. It's a great spot to pregame on 93.5 and 107.5 FM The Fan.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
Hey, welcome back here. Here's what we got live from the Pivot Bar. Second floor here inside the Hyatt House across from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Pre-game before the Pacer Clippers tonight at Bankers Life Fieldhouse right here with a great specials. I'll tell you all about it coming up. Meantime, back to Rick Venturi via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You got a lot of time and effort and money and draft selections in that secondary. And, man, what were we thinking about that yesterday?
Well, there's a talent issue and there's the schematic issue. Now, I had a lot of problems with this scheme for a year and a half. And then, I think we went through a period where we decided that we were going to be very aggressive, a much, much higher percentage of man-to-man, a little bit more matchup coverage with our cover 4. We had kind of gotten away from that, 80% what I call area zone or high school, junior high. I won't defame the high schools. It's junior high zones. And all of a sudden, we're just evolving back. So it's not always talent. I mean, most of the yardage, you take away the Evans throw, which he just ran by Desir. Desir, I don't know what he was thinking because Evans in this offense was vertical. This is what bothers me. This is what you talk about going into the game. You're playing Arians, and you know that Evans Evans is a vertical guy. Godwin is a vertical guy. On the first series, you shuffle out of there, like you're playing some bumpkin, and the next thing you know, he's 5 yards behind you. I don't get it. But when you play that soft underneath zone, you're letting people into open air. Now, the good quarterbacks, the real consistent quarterbacks and coordinators who will pick you clean on that, that's the Gruden-type guys that do that. with this one, where it hurt is this is the kind of quarterback you have to choke people off. He will throw it into tight windows. What he needs, as I said early in the show, is open air, and we're sitting in there in those fire zone blitzes, and then we run a max blitz, and Bruce picked him clean with a couple screens on the outside. He saw him coming and just got it out there, and they ran for 10 yards here or there. But the biggest thing is you allowed Winston to have all that open air to throw to guys. And the irony is you lost Evans in the first quarter. You lost 50% of your offense. I mean, it wasn't like you had to back off everybody. Nobody's ever heard of Watson before. I mean, you have to Google him up to know who he is. And so, there's a part of it that's scheme, but I've seen Desir play good football. That was carelessness. I mean, I think you've seen is a guy – Quincy Wilson, who was a high 2, must be a bust at this point because he can't even get on the field. You lose Kenny Moore, and we heard that he was not only really had turned the corner, but he was the most versatile player on our team. We can play him at nickel. He hardly even travels. So that's a bust right there. Our safeties have had some terrible communications, and you're in the 13th game, for goodness sake, and it's not like we play a lot of nuanced stuff. There are teams that play nuanced stuff where you double 2 guys or you quarter one way and you slice the other side. I mean, we're as simple as the day is long, and we have communication errors. So I think you have to take responsibility from top down on this one. I really do, and I think it's a combination scheme, and so much of it is that numbers to numbers underneath coverage that I'll be honest with you, from how I grew up, I can't even watch it. When you play a game like that, you give up so many uncontested balls that it's anti everything I've ever believed.
So Rick Venturi is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Let's take a break, and we'll come back after 5. And I want you to speak regarding the handling of Alvin Vinatieri, who went on IR earlier today. We'll talk about that and then talk about the quarterback position moving forward and your thoughts. Rick Venturi on a Monday per usual. We'll come back with Rick and more of your calls before we end. Remember, 5:30, you get Matt, Jim, and Joe with the Colts Roundtable coming up at the bottom of the hour. So you need to hustle in here. Pivot Bar before the Clippers-Pacer game tonight, right across from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. This is FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
I tell you what I want to do before we get back to Rick here. We're live at Pivot Bar downtown, Hyatt House. I love this place. Right across from Bankers Life Fieldhouse, you get the Clippers and the Pacers. Why is it, whether we were talking about, Andrew Luck or the big it always gives fans, seemingly, as it does with the way this whole Vinatieri thing was handled, reason to believe something is going on. You know what I mean? There's a reason. They're not telling you the truth. They're not, you know what I mean? They're being underhanded. They always kind of leave you a reason. Even if we believe or know that's not the case, they give you reason to believe or reason to bombard me with theories as to what they're trying to get away with. Why do they handle it like that?
Well, there's just so much spin that comes out of there. Going back from the beginning of the season, there's just always so much spin. And when you do that, and when you don't hold people accountable and everything's great and everything's this and everything's that, then you're slowly going to lose credibility. And that's what's happened. And it's beginning to happen with this regime just like it did the last regime. And that's unfortunate. I think a lot of this, is I think that this is a lot of things that have really been created. I think, obviously there was a meniscus issue. They're going to go in and fix it. But I think it was more in his head. I watched him kick in the preseason. And I think, the Colts have done the right thing in the sense at this point that they're going to give him a very, very honorable way out and injured reserve. I mean, and he deserves it. This is the greatest kicker of all time. There isn't any question about it. And he's given everything to this franchise. But I think really in terms of just winning football games, this should have been done quite a long time ago, and I think you and I said that at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the spin, that's the perfect way to put it right there. You get so much spin, and then when things kind of go awry like this, you're kind of left trying to explain it and really backpedaling for months saying that everything's okay and you have a belief in a dude where now you suggest that you believe the reason why he missed some of these field goals would be because the injury they're going to fix.
And he's never on an injury report. Okay?
Right.
Never.
Exactly.
So let's keep that. That's why it's getting harder and harder to believe much that comes out of there.
So Rick Venturi with us once again. All right, I mean, Jacoby Brissett. Wait, long term, do we agree on the fact that if he's going to be, again, the quarterback, which he is next year, you're going to have to upgrade on the support, skill position, talent around him, or at least have it healthy, right?
Well, we're not playing even. And don't get me wrong, the receivers had a pretty good game numerically, but we're not playing with a full deck there. I've been saying that for weeks, and as the game and to be honest with you, as the game grows and people start to clamp down on us, even if we have success early versus their zones, it begins to die. You see it. You saw it this week. So, absolutely, we have to get perimeter skill guys that can make a difference. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. We cannot. I mean, when T.Y. Hilton goes out of the game, we go from Armani to Walmart. There's no question about it. And then, and our record shows it. I mean, we just cannot. And then what happens is you can't run the ball after a while because they've got too many guys up to stop it. And so you're just hopeless by the fourth quarter. You do some good strategy early, but by the fourth quarter, all that stuff's out the window, and all of a sudden you get stuffed. Now, as far as Jacoby, I don't think that he's played terrible, but I don't think that he's played good enough to say that this is a guy that carries the franchise on your back. So I would say that if it was my team, and, we still have 3 key games left, that's why you play it out. But I think you have to keep all options open at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to go in and draft somebody. I do that. Not necessarily to play right away, but I think they're going to draft somebody. I still think Brissett's going to be the starter next year. You look at a guy. You look at a guy that is careful, doesn't turn it over, can do some good things, but it is still out there whether or not this guy at all can carry you when you have significant issues, as we saw at the end of that game yesterday.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, you can play that way, but you can't give up 542 yards on defense. I mean,
no doubt.
You can play that way if you're the 2001 Bucks, if you're the 85 Bears, or if you're the 202,000 Ravens, but you can't play that way the way we play. I mean, it's a myth about how we play defense. But we'll have another tough one coming in there Monday night at my old place here. I guarantee you they lost an unbelievable game yesterday to the 49ers. That's a classic in NFL history right there. Almost 100 points and almost 1,000 yards by those two teams. And they're really not bad defenses. That's the scary part of it. They're just offensive skill-wise on both ends, and offensive coaching. It's just, I watched the game today. It's just an absolute coach's clinic both ways on offense.
Well, let's talk a little bit about New Orleans as well. That's the Monday Nighter, of course, coming up a week from tonight. And we know, obviously, who pulls the trigger as far as what they do offensively.
Yeah.
Yesterday had to be a downer for them, though, because when you put up 40-plus, you don't expect to lose a game at home as they did.
Well, I think that's right, and like somebody said to me today, well, they're going to be mad. I don't know. Obviously they're going to be mad, but I'll tell you what, that really hurt them. That takes a lot out of you. I mean, when you lose a game, that not only is the two best teams in the league playing one another, like you say, an exciting game that you just got wrenched at the end, a 4th and 2, and Kittle makes a great play, great call by Shanahan to get that first down, and then he does the rest. I think it takes a lot out of them, and it's probably, and then they're probably looking at it takes away that home field advantage, which is critical in New Orleans. But let's face it, this is a 10-3 team. This is a terrific franchise that, in the last 2 years is 2 last-minute flukes, really, absolute flukes. away from potential world championships. This is a really good team. You're facing one of the best coaches. I think Allen does a good job on defense. I don't think they're a great defensive team, but they're at least back into the middle. Offensively, I don't think Sean Payton has any peers. I think he's the best constructor of an offense. He's the best, I think, matchup football guy and adaptation guy. He's a guy that really understands and constructs specific skills and moves it around. He always has a guy like Kamara, although Kamara may be the best, but he had a Reggie Bush and a Sproles, and Michael Thomas is like Marcus Colston. He always has, those guys. He's got, a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew. And I think Drew, in some respects, doesn't get the absolute respect that he should. I think, really, they always talk about this guy's the GOAT, that guy's the GOAT. I think he should always be in that conversation. And they have three premier players. And let's talk about them on offense first. The two guys that you absolutely have to stop. Now, they're versatile. They do a lot of things. Sean's going to give you high volume. He's going to give you up to 11 personnel groupings in the course of a game. But you have to stop Alvin Kamara. You have to stop him. Now, he'll share time in the backfield. He'll share time with Murray. Murray's kind of the banger. He plays the role that Ingram played. But Kamara is the guy that can beat you. He's the best space back in the league. He's a combination of the old school option route runners, and Sean has got that old school in him. He knows how to isolate linebackers. He'll move him around, and right him 1 and 1A is Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas obviously has 121 catches, 14, 24, and 7 touchdowns. It's just amazing. Kamara has 68 catches, and then he has 612 rushing. These guys, between the two of them, have 2,500 yards. So don't just go play them straight. Please have a plan to take away those two guys, because he is going to move them around. The interesting thing about both of those guys, John, they weren't combine warriors. That's why Thomas is the 2 and Kamara's the 3. They were guys that ran 4.57 at the combine, but the Saints were able to see what they could do, how they could fit that system, and they've become premier players, 2 of the real premier players in the league. And then there's some other guys. I think you have to be alert. I think he's getting a lot out of Jared Cook, particularly, down the seams. And I'd say the big thing with Cook and Ginn Jr., those are kind of the specialist guys, is they're the deep threat guys. The scheme guys are going to be 41 and 13, Kamara and Thomas. And those other guys are going to take it deep if you over double them. So, you got to be ready for that. Taysom Hill is another weapon. He uses him in what I call the quarterback cat or the wildcat. Sometimes Breeze is in with him, sometimes he's not, and he uses him to give you a change-up offense, give you the NCAA look, of which he'll run zone reads and options, and all of a sudden it's just more diversity to the offense. He's getting a little criticism for that, because in a tight game to take Breeze out for a series is questionable, but it's a defensive nightmare. And Hill is just the Swiss Army knife. This is a guy that catches a touchdown, throws a touchdown, runs a touchdown, and blocks a kick. So he's really an interesting guy. I don't think they're great on defense, but they're better than they used to be. They're in the middle now. They really got gashed Sunday. They had moved up in positions, and now in total defense they're back to 13th and 12th in scoring. They actually were up a little bit higher than that, but they have one really premier guy in Cameron Jordan on the end, who's 3rd in the league in sacks at 13.5. He'll line up on both sides of the set. So, and I thought Costanzo and Smitty did a really good job on Barrett and Pierre-Paul. The only time that Barrett got a half a sack Sunday was really on Haig, when Haig was over there at that tight end position, and that's the one time that Barrett got around him. So, but they'll be challenged with Jordan on one side and then Pierre-Paul and Davenport are in there. Davenport's the young kid out of San Antonio. He has 6, not Pierre-Paul, but Davenport is on the other side, and he has 6 sacks along with Jordan. I think they're just okay inside. I think Demario Davis, 56, is just an outstanding linebacker, and he's a guy that you have to account for on the run. Better to run right at him. He's a great pursuit guy. And then when they get on third down, he's their blitzer. So you got to be ready for him in that third down package. It's a tough venue down there. There's no question about it, and particularly early in the game. You'll see it if you can post up by 7:30. If you've been in New Orleans all day, if you can post up by 7:30, I'll give you credit. But it can be very, very difficult at night because all those people down there are going to be in that French Quarter all afternoon. I mean, they're going to be rocking and rolling, and when they come into that stadium at night, it is life and death, and you have to be very, very sharp in New Orleans in that first quarter because you can get overwhelmed if you're not. I'll be honest with you, I was there for 10 years, most of which, or a lot of it, I was the defensive coordinator calling defenses. And even in a home venue, I usually script the first couple series and let the team know because it can be so loud in there that your communication, even with the home team, can be very difficult. So, it's a very tough venue. I think that one of the most important things is just to withstand that first quarter assault down there and stay in it, and then the game will come back to you. It'll come back to you a little bit. You'll see what Sean's going to do with you, but he's going to come out and give you a million things right off the bat. I mean, if he's got 11 personnel groupings, you're probably going to see him in the first 11 plays. And it's very important to study him and know his history and really know how, more than anything, that he uses Michael Thomas and how he uses Kamara, because it's unusual. They're not stationary guys. They're going to be at different spots. And when they're in different spots, they do different things. And then the most important thing is you have to have a rush plan for Breeze. Breeze is, he's just so good. On first down, I always wanted to come off the edge against him because they run the ball, particularly if Murray's in the game. They'll run it, and then they play action, and that's when he throws the ball deep. They love to boot him because he's not very tall, so they love to get him outside. So you want to come off the edge on first down, stopping the run and the play action, and he will throw a little bit outside. Once you get him to a passing down, you want to do just the opposite. You want to create the tall trees inside. You want to collapse him, not so much because he's going to run like a Winston or the kid at Texas. What you want with him, you want to condense the passing lanes. Because Drew does stride into the ball, and at 6 foot, I used to tell my players sometimes he's 5'7" when he releases it, but he's a magician at sliding in and out of the pocket and throwing down the seams. So what you want to do is you want to condense and close it. This is a great game to have Hunt and Autry inside. Yep. You want to create, if you've ever been to Muir Woods out in the San Francisco area, that's that site. That's that.
Well, you know that I want to be there, right?
National. I know you are.
I got to run here, but I want to be there. Right. I'm going to be posted up, as you mentioned a little bit earlier too. How about that?
You can
be posted up.
You can get down to that French Quarter. That's my old hangout down there now.
That's awesome.
You can be yourself proud down there now. That they welcome everyone.
I'll call you later on this week and prepare you for all of it.
Okay,
hey, Rick, as always, you're awesome. Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you.